morning, everyone. Great to have you with us again for the Scottish Agri-Tourism Conference. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone, people that were here yesterday, new people that are joining us on day 2 in the hall, and we have around 200 people registered at home, watching online from not just all over Scotland, but all over the world. So we're extremely grateful to Scottish Rural Network for supporting our conference and allowing so many people at home to be here in the room with us today. If you're in the room, please wear a face mask when you're in the concert hall. I've just been asked to remind you that from the concert hall staff. That would be great. And if you're in the room, if you want to ask a question today, you can raise your hand and we will have a microphone come to you. You can also use the app to ask a question, and that will feed through to us. If you're at home, please use the chat box to ask questions. We had lots of questions yesterday coming in from all people all over the place, so we will be using that as well today to ask questions. I'm just going to now formally introduce and welcome the Cabinet Secretary for Rural Affairs and the Islands, Mairi Goujon. It's a pleasure to have Mairi with us today, and she has to leave this morning at 10:10, so I'm just going to hand over to her just now to launch Scotland's agri-tourism growth strategy.
Thank you so much for that, Caroline, and I'm really delighted to be here today. And well, I did see a lot of familiar faces outside, not so much now that I'm up here, but it is just so great to be here in person and to speak to you all. And firstly, I just want to acknowledge the members of the Agri-Tourism Group. Now, the journey of Scotland's agri-tourism growth strategy has been a short one, but it has been made possible by the committed and passionate people that have been involved in the work of the group. So I really want to thank everyone who's been involved in playing their part and pulling this together. Now, while we have come a long way in growing the agri-tourism sector, we still have a journey ahead of us, and now is the time to take forward this really bold and ambitious strategy. And it's my pleasure to be here today to launch the strategy. Now, agri-tourism represents a fantastic growth opportunity for our rural economy. By diversifying operations, farmers and crofters generate a stable income, and that in turn can help to sustain their business. But it doesn't stop there, because that diversified activity also provides an economic boost to the wider rural community by attracting tourists from urban areas as well as from further afield to our countryside. Now, activities covered are wide and varied and include, amongst other things, accommodation, farm tours, eating farm produce in a farm cafe or restaurant, includes adventure sports, health, relaxation and wellness activities, as well as children's farm experiences too. And this is all the more important during the current COVID endemic, as more and more people opt for staying and holidaying domestically. And this, together with the impacts of Brexit, I think makes it all the more important that we deliver a strong Scottish agri-tourism offering. Now, the last year and a half has undoubtedly been tough for everyone in Scotland, and I'd first like to acknowledge the challenges that the tourism sector has been facing during the pandemic. I know that this has been a really worrying and a really challenging time for everyone, including those within the agri-tourism sector who are the providers of much of our high-quality farm experiences. And I'm grateful for the sector's cooperation in helping to keep people safe and for the commitment to ensuring that tourism and hospitality plays its part in reducing the spread of coronavirus. Now, the Scottish Government recognises the tourism sector is a crucially important part of the Scottish economy. It brings jobs, it creates opportunities for communities, and it enables visitors and residents alike to experience the incredible offer that we have here in Scotland. And agri-tourism is becoming a growing consumer trend in Scotland, and it can and will play an important part in the tourism landscape. Now, since the start of the pandemic, our support for business has reached £4.3 billion, and that includes a sector-specific support package valued at £129 million put in place to support a range of tourism and hospitality businesses from January of this year. And we're also supporting the tourism sector with the reopening of the economy through the Tourism Recovery Programme, and announced and provided a £25 million tourism recovery package to support phase 1 of that programme in March of this year. Now, phase 1 of the programme is already in delivery, and 10 recovery projects are being implemented by our delivery partners. But alongside implementing phase 1, we've been working with the sector to develop plans for a second phase of recovery. Now, this work has been led by a working group of the Scottish Tourism Emergency Response Group, which has been supported by the Scottish Tourism Alliance. The Tourism Emergency Response Group submitted its plans for phase 2, which involved 13 recovery proposals to the Scottish Government in late August, and 7 of these proposals build on the successful delivery of initiatives that had already been established under the first phase of recovery projects previously supported by the Scottish Government, and significantly scales them up. The 6 new proposals are designed to accelerate recovery further and ensure that Scotland's tourism sector is well placed to capitalise on emerging consumer and business trends. And these proposals support the rebuilding of the visitor economy in a responsible way, ensuring that tourism thrives and sets Scotland's tourism and hospitality industry back on track to delivering the ambitions of Scotland Outlook 2030, as well as the 10-year National Strategy for Economic Development. We'll now consider the best approach to supporting the phase 2 recovery work covering the next 2 years. Now, I also couldn't come today without mentioning climate change, because while COP26 takes place in Glasgow, every part of the economy, of our society, now has a part to play in the efforts towards reaching net zero by 2045. And that's going to be particularly important as we make the changes that are required to transition to a net zero carbon economy, ensuring that that change is fair for Scotland's workforce. Now, innovation, behaviour change, challenging the norms, adapting and mitigating are all necessary to put our businesses, economy and society onto a more sustainable footing in the face of global climate change. And agritourism will play a big role in this, as it already does. Now, this strategy, through a responsible approach, will ensure sustainability in all of its forms, and is a key strategic cross-cutting theme, transforming business models and bringing new products and methods of working to the fore that will exist in the future low-carbon economy. What's also critical to mention today here is food and drink. Now, Scotland already has a reputation for producing world-class quality food. Our aim is to build this reputation and secure our future as a destination of choice for those who value quality local food and a place to whom other countries turn in order to learn how to become a good food nation. We are rightly proud of our food and drink. It not only feeds us, but also provides opportunity, it provides employment, especially in our more remote and in our rural areas too. It's key in protecting and enhancing the environment and in helping to define who we are as a nation. And the launch of the agritourism strategy allows us to celebrate and bring those offerings to many more people as part of that wider tourism package. Now, as we all know, the last 18 months has been hugely challenging for food and drink sector and for tourism. And that's why we've been working with the Scottish Tourism Alliance and Scotland Food and Drink over the summer to refresh Scotland's food tourism action plan as part of our economic recovery and 100-day commitments as we look to rebuild our economy. Now, in September, I had the pleasure of announcing the establishment of a regional food tourism ambassador programme. And I really believe that the ambassador programme will support the goal of food tourism becoming a sustainable contributor to the local economy, which is going to be particularly important as we drive our recovery. Now, these ambassadors are ideally placed to ensure that our food and drink offering is rightfully at the heart of the agritourism strategy. Now, working in partnership will be key, and agritourism, by its very definition, cuts across agriculture and tourism. Agritourism provides more opportunities to sample our amazing natural larder, whether that be at B&Bs, restaurants, or more hands-on food-on-farm experiences. And we'll be naturally encouraging more locally based production and in turn shortening supply chains and reducing the distance that our food travels. And most importantly, and done properly, it's showcasing the best of our food and drink offering to visitors, both from overseas and those that we have closer to home too. The strategy also clearly chimes with our recently published local food strategy, which is currently out for consultation. And it shares what we're currently doing to encourage locally based production, to enable more people to grow their own food, and to improve access to locally sourced food. And if you haven't already responded to that consultation, then I would urge you to take a look at it, and please do respond to it if you can. I see this, the agritourism strategy, is critical in doing what I think we all want to see, which is connecting people to the land and connecting people to where their food comes from, whether that's visitors from abroad or in the communities that are immediately around us. Over the past 2 years, Visit Scotland's work with and support for the agritourism sector in Scotland has rapidly increased as the potential of the sector has begun to be realised. And there's been growth both in terms of new entrants to the sector and innovative development of agritourism experiences, which matches with a growing consumer and visitor demand for authentic rural experiences which are based on working farms. Now, in that time, Visit Scotland's role has focused on 2 key areas for the sector: marketing and insights, and supporting the development of the first agritourism growth strategy for Scotland. Now, this is in addition to supporting Go Rural and Scottish Agritourism as a developing organisation representing the sector. The size and scale of Scotland's agritourism sector was measured for the first time in a new annual census of farms, crofts and estates across the country. Launched in partnership with Scottish Agritourism, the Growth Tracker aims to show the impact that the sector has on the Scottish economy and the role that it plays to sustain businesses in rural communities, as well as its propensity for growth. The work involved collecting data on the number of businesses in the sector, the visitor numbers, and the amount of businesses who are considering agritourism too. This is a hugely important piece of research that will help place a value on what's become one of tourism's most exciting new sectors. And the results, which will be revealed later in the day by Visit Scotland, will be used to help shape future policy and support for the sector too. Agritourism has become a growing consumer trend in Scotland, with an increasing number of farm enterprises looking to diversify their operations. And popular experiences include farm stays, farm tours, and food and drink activities. Now, as an example of innovation and appealing to emerging consumer trends, organised by Go Rural and supported by Visit Scotland, Lamathon was first created in 2020 as a means of really cheering people up during the first national coronavirus lockdown. Now, it saw a number of farms across the country use Facebook to deliver daily tours showing the ins and the outs of lambing season. Now, as well as the unique opportunity to see the lambs make their first appearance in the world, viewers also got that really important chance to meet the faces behind each farm and learn more about the day-to-day activities and exploring the land together. And Lamathon and the subsequent Welcome to My Farm tours were a massive hit online, with online audiences reaching 10,000 different families who were tuning in. Lamathon is a really excellent example of how businesses have shown real creativity and innovation to reach potential visitors during the pandemic. We know that many people are longing to explore Scotland when restrictions allow, but thankfully through technology, that means that until then, they can still get that connection to our countryside and share the experience and the excitement of welcoming new life onto Scotland's farms. Now, as agritourism businesses continue to develop, Visit Scotland has provided support in helping to get those experiences to market. Agritourism businesses now account for over 600 of the free listings on visitscotland.com, and a number of work through travel trade ready programmes, allowing them to grow and expand through new business-to-business relationships, opening up more domestic and some international visitor opportunities. And in addition to that, Visit Scotland is providing tailored advice on building digital skills and capacity assurance. Now, in drawing to a close, I just want to say what a privilege it is to be here today and to launch this ambitious strategy. This strategy will deliver a strategic and coordinated approach to the sustainable growth of agritourism in Scotland, and to ensure that the sector thrives and that it does that in a responsible and sustainable way. Now, this incredible work couldn't have happened without the drive and determination of one person, and I'd like to personally thank Caroline Miller for all the work that she's done. I first met Caroline maybe around 8 or 9 years ago when I was on Angus Council, and she was talking about the potential of agritourism then. And the fact is, we wouldn't be here today without all of the work that Caroline has done. And I know what a huge support you've been to other businesses while still getting on and trying to run your own too. So I really look forward to continuing to work with you, Caroline, and work with all of you as this work progresses, because I truly believe that this work has the opportunity to be transformative, and I don't think it could have come at a better time after all the challenges of COVID, because what it does offer is that hope as well as a real tangible opportunity. So thank you so much for listening to me today, and I really hope that you all have an enjoyable and productive conference. Thank you very much.
Do you want to stay there,
Oh, yeah.
Cabinet Secretary, for questions, because you've not got Britney Spears mic like me. So we've got time for just under 10 minutes of questions, and thank you, you've got these people at home as well. So hands up who would like to ask a question to the Cabinet Secretary. This gentleman down here. Can we have a mic down here, please? Just coming. Could anybody else raise their hands that wants to ask a question next, just so I know where I'm coming to?
Hi, my name's Chris Duncan from Mill Architects. It's great to see all these strategies being put in place, and obviously it's going to have an enormous impact on what's happening in Scottish agriculture and tourism. But as a rural architectural practice, we are constantly coming up against opposition to development in the countryside. We tend to find that the Scottish planning policy is broadly supportive of development and change. But when that comes through into local development plans, we generally find that local authorities are much more opposed to development, and it's quite an obstructive process and quite difficult to get planning applications through. Particularly when that's regard to housing. Businesses are generally easier, but yesterday there was a lot of talk about creating employment through rural business, and obviously people who are working in the countryside need places to live, and the businesses where they're working obviously need premises and so on. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on the planning process in relation to the rural environment, and whether this could be eased up or made easier in the future.
Well, I think this is an area we'll have to continue to look at as well. I mean, because obviously, especially in my portfolio for rural affairs and representing the islands, I mean, you mentioned homes and house building there in particular. That is one of the key challenges that we face. I think that we have a lot of fragile communities. We can see depopulation happening, and we need to be able to. And housing is it's an issue that's continually raised with me as a means of, we need the homes. We have jobs in rural areas, but it's the lack of housing and availability of that can prevent people from staying. And I think that we do have strong ambitions nationally in relation to that, in relation to our rural and islands housing in particular, where we're developing an action plan for that, and we have specific funding for that too. But you're absolutely right. I think it can be all very well having a national strategy, but it's about how that also can translate at the local level too. And I think if there are particular issues at local authority level in relation to delivering our ambitions, then yeah, I think that's something that we need to take a close look at.
Thank you.
I'll take a question from home now. So the question is, how will the agritourism strategy be taken forward, and what investment will be made to deliver the strategy?
No, it's a really good question, because again, as I'm just saying, it's all very well having a strategy, but a strategy isn't good if you're not going to deliver on it and it sits on a shelf. And I think that's where it's really critical now that we drive forward the work that's been done, and really really make sure that we deliver on the strategy. I think one thing that struck me is by going around visiting the different farm businesses and different agritourism businesses as well, is the ambition and the drive that's there. I want to make sure as a government that we capitalise on that and we really drive and create the opportunities for agritourism to grow and to thrive. Now, I know that there will be asks of us in terms of funding, but I think it's important that we look to the actions, and this is what we've discussed with Caroline as well, and that's been raised, that what actions can we deliver in the short, medium and longer term, and we need to make sure that we have the oversight of that and that we're monitoring that to make sure that we're delivering on the actions that we've set out to. So I very much see this strategy as being a living document, something that we'll continue to look at and develop, but absolutely, from a Scottish Government perspective, I want to make sure that we drive the ambition and that we drive the strategy forward and we actually deliver on what it sets out.
Okay, take a question from the hall if there's one. There's Alison here, sorry.
Hi there. It feels like Scottish agritourism has an absolutely massive potential to reach right across different policy areas. Who are your top 3 allies within your cabinet to help promote our sector?
All my cabinet colleagues are my allies, because I think that we all have a job here, because I think that especially, I'm responsible for food and drink in Scotland, and food and drink, it isn't just a rural thing. It cuts across so many different areas. So, for example, I mentioned in my remarks about the Good Food Nation bill that we'll be driving. That cuts across all areas of government when it comes to food, when it comes to health, when it comes to our well-being. It's social justice and all of these different issues as well. And as part of that work, we've also said that we're going to set up a ministerial working group on food. And that's where I think agritourism is placed to drive forward a lot of all these other areas that we talked about across government, some of which I've mentioned today as well, in driving our ambitions to be a good food nation. So I very much see all my cabinet colleagues as allies in this and in driving this work forward. And I will always be doing my utmost to make sure that happens.
Don't want to leave MD out. One last question, I'm just conscious of time. One last question from online. Will there be capital grants available specifically for agritourism businesses, and who would dispense the funding? Would it be national or local government?
That's a level of detail that we don't have yet in terms of any specific funds, but I know that that's been an ask of us to look at what funding could specifically be there for agritourism. But I think that that's something that we'll continue to look at and to see what support is there. I mean, that's another interesting discussion that we had earlier this morning as well with the destination leaders about, the different elements of funding. So we've had leader funding, that's worked for some businesses, it's not worked for others. Leader is a programme in particular that that while we're no longer a member of the EU, we've looked to take the best of the Leader programme and establish a Test of Change programme, which ran earlier this year, and there were 2 tranches of funding as part of that we've got to take learning from as well. But I think that's where the work that's been done in developing the strategy, as well as the work that we're doing by looking at these our replacement rural development programmes, will help feed into that, and then we can then consider, what that, if specific support is needed for agritourism to drive it, and then what that support might look like. But I do think that in terms of the actions that will be taken forward in delivering this strategy, that we'll continue to have those conversations. But yeah, the specific level of detail I don't have at the moment.
Okay. Cabinet Secretary, thank you very much for being with us this morning. I know you've got a busy schedule and another going back to Glasgow, I think, to COP today. So really appreciate you coming so early and joining us at our conference. And we look forward to continuing to work with you to deliver this agritourism growth strategy. So thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay, so we'll break for a comfort break at 10:30 before the first of our main sessions this morning starts at 10:45. But for now, I just wanted to take you through some aspects of the growth strategy. So it will be getting emailed to everybody that's registered as a delegate here today. It will be going out to you tomorrow, and I hope you will take the time to read the document and to ask any questions you have. There have been various people within this room who've been involved in the development of the strategy, along with a range of other organisations, including NFU Scotland, Crofton Commission, enterprise agencies, and Visit Scotland. So it's been a public and private sector strategy. So just in terms of growing our sector, I mean, these are some of the fantastic people in our sector. There's more than this, obviously, and some of you are actually here in the audience. But it's about, how do we grow agritourism? How do we use agritourism to sustain family farms in Scotland? It is a key route to sustaining family farms. It's a key route for rural development, and other countries use agritourism for as the sales arm of agriculture, as an export food policy. It has a wide range of impacts, and so, for years we've not been at our full potential with agritourism the way that other countries are. So this is, are we serious about really taking it to the next level, or are we going to continue to be, a vibrant and great sector? And I think now is the sort of milestone to decide, are we going to max things up or continue at current levels? We are part of a really strong international network where Scotland is really seen as a country who's vibrant in agritourism. And 2 years ago today, and over the last few days, I was fortunate to be in Bolzano in Italy, representing Scotland and speaking at the world's first agritourism conference. And this now takes place every 2 years. We do hope to I would love to bring this conference to Scotland, all the world leaders in agritourism from the Philippines, India, Australia, South America. There was every corner of the world was represented, and it was a fantastic event. But this network, our network that exists in Scotland, that's a strong network, there's an international network who are also in touch with each other on a regular basis. And we're fortunate to have 3 international experts from Canada, Austria and Italy form part of the Scottish Government's Growth Strategy Group. And it was really valuable to have their input. Agritourism is not new in Scotland. So here's a dear lady who I thought the world of, who very sadly passed away at the start of this year. But Mrs. McConkey from Dumfries and Galloway, as we heard yesterday, Murray's granny. But she set up probably one of Scotland's first agritourism businesses before the war. And this was her on a zip line at Lagan. She used to go down the zip line with her pals every week. She was 101 when she died, but she used to drive the Land Rover up full of her pals, and they'd park it at the top, and they'd all go down the zip line, then go for a cup of coffee. So my ambition in life is to be this lady. I would still like to be doing what she did, and I think we could all aspire to that. But agritourism, the message is there's been people in agritourism and farms and crofts for a number of years in Scotland. The difference now is the recognition for the sector, and we discussed that yesterday, but that has taken a lot of work to make other people, including government, realise it's a key sector for growth. And it's not just about it's been great to look at these other countries and what they're doing in terms of agritourism, but we can have our version of agritourism in Scotland. So some countries have an agritourism sector which is very focused on accommodation, for example. So you'll hear later from Thomas from Italy, and their sector is very focused on accommodation with a food and drink experience. If you go to somewhere like the States, it's very focused on farm retail, farm stands at the end of the road, and farm events and farm experiences. And they don't really have a big accommodation sector. So it's not about one or the other, it's about finding what works best for Scotland. So there's 3 key things in the strategy here. Continuing to encourage and support farmers who want to sell their farm produce direct. There's an increase in consumer demand from people wanting to buy not just meat, fruit, vegetables, milk from vending machines. We've seen a real interest in that, cheese, all sorts of things. But we need to have the support and the infrastructure in place to make that possible. So that's a key part of our agritourism. The other one is days out. So days out on experiences. So coming to a farm for a day, meals in a farm cafe, sports and activities, taking a farm tour, getting married on a farm. These are really important activities, and as we'll see later this afternoon, a local market for agritourism is really vital for us, and it's just as important as a domestic or an international market. And then, of course, there's short breaks and holidays. So I just wanted to kind of re-emphasise this, because short breaks and holidays are so important, but it's not the full picture. And I think this hopefully paints a clear picture about what we want to see happen with agritourism going forward. And I think in the future, the nature of the strategy will mean there's many more accommodation providers. It'll not just be accommodation, it'll be accommodation plus, as in accommodation with a farm tour, accommodation where your fridge is stocked with farm produce or local food from the local area. And I think that experience and the food and drink nature of agritourism is very much at the heart of the strategy and how we'll go forward. Ultimately, as I mentioned, we want to sustain the family business. And so this year from Kay Wilson, we couldn't farm here without our agritourism business. We also wouldn't have an agritourism business without the farm. And to be an agritourism business, you've got to be a real farmer or crofter. And we set a definition last year in Scotland, our leadership group. There wasn't a definition existed, but it's a real working farm, croft or estate, which produces food. So that is absolutely critical. It's not about, I don't like the word diversification. I think that agritourism is an extension of agricultural activity, which can benefit agriculture, but the two need to go hand in hand. And then my parents couldn't farm on their own, and it wouldn't work without the agritourism income. My husband, Dougie, would be back working off farm, and I'd be working off farm. So that so critical factor about allowing multiple generations to have an income from the farm, that is what we're striving for here. We saw it yesterday with various case studies where there was multiple generations working and having a future together on the farm. And if it happens that it's only, the older generation in their 60s and they don't have, another income for the younger generation, it's less likely they'll come back and take over the family farm. So this is really critical here. I mentioned the type of sector we want to have. At the moment, I know the Cabinet Secretary said 600, but I think in the strategy it's 500 businesses listed with visitscotland.com. Brian Henderson from Scotsman pointed out it was quite a low figure perhaps, but I think this is not a true reflection of the number of agritourism businesses in Scotland, but we know that these are the businesses who have a listing who've been verified as agricultural businesses within visitscotland.com. So that's what we've got to go for. But we want many more businesses in the sector who don't have a listing to be listed. Certainly that's a real short-term action we can do in the next 12 months. So that that's a key way to know that these businesses exist and they're out there. And by 2030, sorry, I've got too many zeros in there, or an extra 3. That is quite a long time scale. That's one slow ambition, isn't it? We'll get there eventually. We'll all be dead. Anyway, by some time in the future, yes, in 9 years' time, we want to have 1,000 businesses that we know of, and that's a conservative target. But critically for this strategy, we want 50% of them to be offering a food and drink experience, or offering food and drink to guests, or selling farm produce direct. So that is the key thing about this strategy. The direction of travel is very much associated with who we are as farmers and how we can make ourselves stand out from other rural tourism offerings, which are all wonderful, but we are farmers producing food, and the consumer has to know that coming to stay on a farm will involve a great experience, a farm tour. I'm thinking of Neil's on Wheels here, as Neil does there, looking at him in the audience, but a farm tour with a farm food offering, and it's such an amazing experience for visitors. And hopefully people will then choose to come and stay with us, as a good option. Just, the final point, I guess, is Scotland going to be a serious player in agritourism? And that's the thing, because we know that, for example, Austria, their sector is €1 billion. We'll hear later from Italy. We know that that's one of the biggest, players in the world. But, farm holidays in Austria have just celebrated 30 years of the farm holiday organisation, and they're driving €30 million per annum through their website. That's what we want to do for Go Rural. We want £30 million worth of sales going through Go Rural, and why shouldn't we? Other European countries are achieving this. There's no reason why we can't be like that. So this strategy and this milestone is very much about changing the ambition. We all need to be more ambitious about where we can take agritourism, but the difference now is that we want and we hope that we're now in a place where Scottish Government, local councils, enterprise agencies and other partners are in a position to recognise that potential and come with us. Our sector hopes for the growth strategy. We certainly don't want it to be a tick box exercise. We are looking for some short-term wins. We are looking for investment from the Scottish Government and others to deliver on these actions. And we will split these actions down into 18 months, 3 years and 5 years. But we cannot afford to have had an agritourism strategy which was put in the commitment for the first 100 days in government to just sit on a shelf or even to stall. We need to start tomorrow to really drive things forward. So we will be making sure that this really goes forward, and we hope that the government will fund and put investment into areas which we will be quite happy to help deliver, and we were quite happy to be measured on those, but we need to see action. Just on capital grants for agritourism, this is in the growth strategy. It was discussed by the group that looked at it, and we are looking at, there wasn't asking the actual strategy for specific capital grants tailored for agritourism, and they would be very much aligned to deliver on that type of sector that we want to be, but also in terms of data and being able to, record what impact that investment's made. I mean, it's not unreasonable if you receive a £50,000 grant or a £100,000 grant or a £5,000 grant to be able to show what you've got as a return for that grant, what you've delivered. You've delivered X more visitors, you've delivered X more markers on sustainable tourism, or employees or family employees retained. And that data would help us to show what the return on investment is and how our sector's growing. And just at the bottom there, I've got to have an application and claim process. Somebody described yesterday as draining the life out of them. So we do need, obviously, it shouldn't be very easy to apply for a grant, but it shouldn't, zap 2 years out your life. So I think how that grant process is taken forward is very important. I just wanted to finish off by highlighting some of the amazing businesses in our sector, and I can only highlight 4 of them to you just now because I don't have enough time. But there's multiple award-winning businesses that are members of Scottish Agritourism who are just right at the top of their game, and they're an absolute inspiration and an example to other people coming into the sector. So we've got our Dross Farm shop here, who won Great British Food Award for the best farm shop in Scotland the other day. Just give them a wee round of applause, will you? We've got the Farmers Weekly UK Farm Diversification of the Year. We've got Old Lecky Farm, so give them a round of applause. I think watching at home, we've got Jenny and Stephen McCare from the Wee Farm Distillery, who won the British Farming Awards Diversification Innovator of the Year. And finally, we've got Glencurley, who Diversification Innovator of the Year for small to medium. That's the Houston family at Glencurley. So I hope you can see, any of you who are in the room today who are not involved in our sector, just the calibre of businesses that we're working with. And I'm sorry for all the other people that have won awards over this year that I couldn't fit into my, but I mean, every time somebody wins an award, it goes into our 175 WhatsApp group businesses, and everybody is cheering for each other. So I would advise you to get involved with Scottish Agri-Tourism and have a great rest of the day at the conference. And now we'll have a comfort break and we'll be back ready to start at 11:15. Thank you.